Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Lake Orion Sports Update. I'm Kevin McCormick. On today's episode, we're going to share with you the latest updates from all of the winter sports season. The Lake Orion Hockey continued their regular season with a home game against Berkeley on December 8th. The Dragons dove right into action during the first period, scoring 2 goals, one by Jacob Helzer with an assist by TJ Hirschfield and Dylan McCallum. Joe Brisky scored the next goal at 12 minutes 40 seconds with assists from Connor Graham and Gabe Poddick. Berkeley had a scoreless first period, giving Lake Orion the 2-point lead going into the second. At 14:36 of the second period, Berkeley scored their first goal of the game, coming from behind the Dragon net and sneaking the puck past goalie Johnny Marshall. That was the only goal of the second, making the score 2-1 Dragons going into the final period. Lake Orion's Jacob Helzer started off the third with a goal to seal the victory. Lucas Reith and Dylan McCallum get credit for the assist. Lake Orion takes the victory 3-1. Lake Orion traveled to the Onyx Ice Arena the following Saturday for an away match against Rochester Stony. During the first period of action, the Dragons put a quick 2 goals in the net. Gabe Poddick scored first with a power play goal against the Cougars. He was assisted by Connor Graham and Joe Brisky. TJ Hirschfield was the next to score with an impressive shorthanded goal, sending the Dragons into the second period with a 2-goal lead. Joe Brisky didn't want to be left out of the scoring party and nailed a power play goal at the 10:14 mark with the help of Josh Fredich and TJ Hirschfield. The next goal wasn't until the end of the third period when Jacob Helzer was able to put another puck in the net with the help of TJ Hirschfield and Kurt Bedra with only 1:45 left in the match. The Dragons took the win with a final score of 4-0. On Friday, December 16th, the Dragons traveled to the Mount Clemens Arena for an away game against the Macomb Dakota Cougars. Lake Orion remained scoreless during the first 2 periods of action, with Macomb Dakota scoring 2 goals against Lake Orion's Johnny Marshall. During the third period, the Cougars scored 1 more goal, but Lake Orion was able to close the gap by firing off 3 of their own goals. Joe Brisky scored 2 even-strength goals, and TJ Hirschfield got 1, sending the game into overtime. But the effort fell a little short for Lake Orion. The Cougars were the first to score in overtime and won the game with a final score of 4-3. The Lake Orion girls basketball team continued their season with a home game against the Troy Colts on December 6th. The Dragons had a strong start in the first quarter, outscoring the Colts by 10 points. Lake Orion continued to outscore the Lady Colts in the second quarter, but only by 4 points. Coming out strong after halftime, Lake Orion dominated in the third quarter, scoring 19 points and holding Troy to 9. The fourth quarter was also strong for Lake Orion, scoring 7 more points than the Colts. The Dragons won the game with a final score of 68-35. Manny Novak was the leading scorer for the Dragons with 27 points. Teammate Sophie Wyborski chipped in 13, and Cameron Coltrane added 7. The following Friday, the girls basketball team traveled to Rochester Adams for an away game against the Highlanders. The score was close between the two teams after the first half, with Adams leading by only 7 points. The Dragons couldn't push ahead of the Highlanders in the third quarter, with Adams outscoring the Lady Dragons by 8 points. Lake Orion increased offensive efforts in the fourth quarter, did yield 19 points, while the defense held Adams to 10, but it wasn't enough, and Rochester Adams won the game 50-44. Sophie Wyborski was the leading scorer for Lake Orion with 13 points. Manny Novak helped with 8, and Delaney Bryce had 5. The girls basketball team hosted a home game against Notre Dame Prep on December 13th. The score was incredibly close throughout the game. The Dragons were leading by only a point over Notre Dame at the end of the first half, 25-24. The same intense gameplay continued in the second half. Notre Dame did build a 5-point lead over the Dragons in the fourth quarter, but Lake Orion was able to tie the score at 43, forcing the game into overtime. The score went back and forth during overtime. It was a battle, but the Dragons were able to grind out a 1-point victory, 52-51. Manny Novak once again led the Dragons in points with 23. Sophie Kanan and Delaney Bryce each threw in 6 points during the game. This energetic game was filmed in its entirety as part of our ON TV winter sports coverage. Check out our website, oriontv.org, for future airtimes of this and other games during the remainder of the season. The games are also available on demand on our YouTube channel. The Lake Orion boys basketball team started out with a home opener game against the Clarkston Wolves on December 7th. Unfortunately for the Dragons, the game would end in a loss with a final score of 68-38. The next game for the Dragons would be an away game against the Troy Colts on December 9th. The outcome of this game was similar to the previous game as the team lost by more than 30 points. The final score of that game was 75-44. The boys basketball team continued with their stretch of away games with a game against the Avondale Yellow Jackets. The Yellow Jackets started out strong, scoring 27 points and holding Lake Orion to only 4 in the first quarter. Although the Dragons fought back against the Yellow Jackets during the game, they were unable to overcome the deficit and lost with the final score of 74-46. The loss put the Dragons in a tough position for the first half of the season with an 0-3 record. Lake Orion's Jamie Lewis was the leading scorer for the Dragons, putting up 18, while teammate Steve Zimieski contributed 7. On Friday, December 16th, the Oakland County Wrestling Tournament kicked off at Lake Orion High School. This two-day event is packed with some of the best wrestlers and teams from around Oakland County. The day started at 285 pounds. Lake Orion's Hunter Chambers wrestled Orchard Lake St. Mary's Kane Lee. Chambers outmatched Lee in the first period, winning the match by a fall with a time of 1 minute 39 seconds. His next match would be against Richard Hamilton of Rochester. The roles were reversed in this match when Hamilton pinned Chambers with a time of 1 minute 47. In the consolation round, Chambers would be paired up with Marcel Bird from Pontiac. This proved to be an easy win for Chambers, winning the match in just 31 seconds. Next up, Chambers squared off against Jason Corey of Avondale. This was another easy win for Chambers, winning on point 17-2. Chambers' next match would be his last in the double loss elimination style tournament. He faced Babacar Diop of Berkeley. Diop proved to be too much for Chambers, pinning him in 2 minutes 28 seconds. Hunter Chambers went 4-2 for the tournament. Skipping ahead a few weight classes brings us to Lake Orion's John Mall at 130 pounds. Mall's first match was against Anthony Welch of Clarkston. Mall wrestled his way to a decision, winning 14-2. His next match was against Garrett Mahoney of Oxford. This match was closer, but Mall again won with a final score of 14-8. His next match would be against Charles Zhu of Rochester Adams. Mall would advance past Zhu with a score of 4-2. Next up would be Warren Stanfield of Walled Lake Central. Stanfield was too much for Mall, winning on points 16-3. He would next face Joshua Young of Ferndale. This was the closest match of the tournament for Mall as he edged out a 6-5 victory over Young. Mall would next wrestle for third place in the tournament against Max Castronobus of Waterford Mott. Castronobus proved to be too much for Mall, beating him with a score of 5-1. Mall placed fourth in the tournament with a record of 4-2. On to the 140-pound weight class. Lake Orion's Noah Smith wrestled against Aaron Walker of Ferndale. Smith pinned Walker with a time of 1 minute 8 seconds. His next match was Xavier Ortiz of Brandon. Smith beat Ortiz with a score of 12-0. Ryan Miller of Oxford would be Smith's next opponent. Miller edged out a win over Smith by a score of 4-3. In the consolation round, Smith's next match was against Dominic Worthington of Waterford Kettering. This was an extremely close match, with Smith winning by the first tiebreaker. Next up was Dolan Vincent of Avondale. Smith beat Vincent on points 7-2. Smith's next match was against John Hawkins of West Bloomfield. Smith worked his way to a 6-4 victory, advancing him to the final match for third place against Carson Cuthbert of Holly. This proved to be the closest match of Smith's tournament. The match remained close the entire 6 minutes, but Smith wrestled a 1-point win over Cuthbert. Smith placed third in his weight class with a record of 6-1. Chris Cade wrestled at 160 pounds for the Dragons. His first match was against Matthew Bolio of Rochester Adams. They wrestled into the second period, where Cade ended the match with a pin with a time of 3 minutes 37 seconds. His next opponent was Josh Rugenstein of Waterford Mott. Cade easily majored Rugenstein by a score of 13-0. In day 2, Cade's first match was against Miles Philippus of Royal Oak. Philippus beat Cade with a score of 7-4. Now in the consolation match, Cade went against Seth Swithard of Detroit Catholic Central. Cade took the win by a score of 4-0. Next up was Michael Jacobs of Lakeland. Cade won this match by a margin of 9-3. The next match would be a rematch against Philippus for third place. This match was closer than the first, but Philippus edged out a 3-2 victory over Cade. Chris Cade placed fourth and finished with a record of 6-2. Next up was Tyler Vestrin at 171 pounds. His first match was against Davon Morris of Stony Creek. Vestrin cruised to a 14-1 major victory. Ian Wilson of Clarkston was second on Vestrin's list. Vestrin won the match by a score of 5-0. His first match of day 2 was against Matthias Dahl of Waterford Mott. Vestrin won this match by a score of 4-0. Cade Dolowitz of Holly was up next. Dolowitz was too much for Vestrin, earning the pin in 3 minutes 49 seconds. Now in this consolation match, Vestrin squared off against Ronell McGee of Ferndale. Vestrin earned a 6-1 victory over McGee. Now in this final match, Vestrin was wrestling John Paul Terzano for third place. Terzano proved to be no match for Vestrin, who won 17-0. Vestrin took third place with a record of 5-1. As a team, Lake Orion took 8th place with 116 points. Lake Orion had 2 fourth-place wrestlers along with 2 third-place finishes. That will do it for this episode of Lake Orion Sports Update. Tune in next time for even more news about the winter sports season.